super excited to chat about all things cross-chain liquidity. This is going to be a fantastic panel. We've got Evan joining us, who is the co-founder of RiseUp Media and is going to be moderating this session. We've got Arjun, who is from LayerZero, Sandeep from Polygon, and Andrei from Li-Fi. Evan, please take it away. I'll remove myself from stage.
Absolutely. And thank you so much. Good now, everyone. My name is Evan Mann, and I am thrilled to help guide this next conversation at Octant's DeFi Summit. Today, we're diving into one of the oldest and still most persistent puzzles in DeFi. We're talking about fragmented liquidity. From the early days of Ethereum to today's multi-chain world, builders have been chasing a vision of seamless liquidity, where users and capital can move freely, efficiently, and securely across ecosystems. And I think we've seen some real progress, but we're not there yet. And the question now is, what's been solved, what still breaks, and what's building now next to unify liquidity across chains? So to explore that, like Michelle said, we have an incredible panel. These are leaders building at every layer of this problem: infrastructure, routing, scaling. I'm going to introduce you guys briefly, and then we're going to get right into the conversation. And for those tuning in live, hello. We would love for you to be part of this. So share your thoughts in the comments, tag your favorite moments. Let us know what you think the future of DeFi liquidity should look like. So first up, we've got Sandeep Nailwal. He is the founder of Polygon, CEO of Polygon Foundation, building infrastructure for a decentralized internet. He works with our good friend Mark Boyran, CEO at Polygon Labs, to guide the protocol's long-term growth. He started in blockchain with Bitcoin back in 2013, launching Polygon, originally Matic, in 2017 to help scale Ethereum. We can talk about that in a minute. But today, Polygon is a powerhouse of payments, of real-world assets, and actual adoption, with AgLayer as the next frontier. Beyond Polygon, Nailwal co-founded Sentient. He launched Blockchain for Impact, and you can find him on X as at Sandeep Nailwal. Andrei Duma is the head of DeFi over at Li.FI. Andrei's been building in blockchain since about 2017, starting with early trading and investing, then moving into multi-chain infrastructure. At Li.FI, he's overseeing DeFi product strategy to solve this cross-chain liquidity capital movement problem, integrating swaps, bridging, contract calls in one flow. Li.FI claims to aggregate 100 plus liquidity sources, bridges, DEX aggregators, and provides routes that are going to optimize your slippage, your gas, your speed. And you can find him at 0x Cerberus on X. And finally, last but not least, is Arjun Arora, head of crypto over at LayerZero Labs. Arjun recently joined LayerZero as their head of crypto, and he's doing a lot of different stuff over there across DeFi, stablecoins, working with custodians and exchanges. And according to a little other coverage that I've seen, he's had some really strong foundational work from his previous involvement at Orderly Network, building order book infrastructure, and is really interested in this omni-chain liquidity layer. So I want to start big, guys, from your vantage point. If there's anything I missed in your bios, fill me in. But I really want to know, how far have we come in the last year or two on cross-chain liquidity and capital efficiency? Where are we proud, and where do we still feel stuck? Sandeep, since I introduced you first, let's start with you.
Yeah, I mean, where we are today is actually like, we have now, first of all, like the good things. Like, I think we have projects like LayerZero OFTs, Wormhole, and Hyperlane, and such projects are there which are building these cross-chain routes, right? And then we have projects like Li.FI, which allow users to have one single interface where with the programmatic as well as the front end interface, where they can get their assets across easily. But right now, still a large part of it, we believe, like, I personally believe that a large part of this is still solved using the solvers in between who have to put in their capital, because obviously it's a growing environment. So there is asset fragmentation, right? Even though the routes are there, then there will be asset fragmentation, that one USDC on one chain will be another USDC on another chain. Although OFT tries to solve that very heavily, but still it's not there with a large amount of assets also. But then you have USDT 0, USDC, with the circle, I think it's called CCTP. Stable coin movements across chain is slightly better. So things are much better. But still, like as an average user, you go there and you want to move from one chain to another, you have to face slippages because somebody is doing the kind of the grunt work in between, and they are charging the cost of finance in that. So although the bigger routes are available, like let's say bigger routes like Ethereum to Polygon, Ethereum to Solana, and whatever the bigger avenues, liquidity avenues, I think those routes are fine. But the dream of crypto was that you could have any DApp anywhere, and you don't have to think about the the liquidity moving. And at Polygon, we believe that can we see a future, or when will we see a future where, like today, you are on a plane and you land in whichever country you land, and on your mobile phone, whether you buy a local SIM card, or your SIM card has roaming, or you go to a Wi-Fi, or you go back to your hotel room and you connect a broadband, you connect to the same internet. It's not like your email IDs are changed and you have to start from the scratch, or move your asset somewhere, or move your credentials somewhere, and all that. You log on to one single internet. But that's not true for blockchains and the assets yet. Although it has come a far long way, but then it's still, there's a lot of work to be done. And ag layer, for example, at Polygon, we are collaborating, we are building like something with which all the chains should be connected all the time, similar to like OFTs. But in case of OFTs, the chains are relying on the individual settlement of the chains, right? The chain one gets settled, and then only then the deviants will say that, okay, the chain one is settled, okay, now I can allow the asset to exist on the chain two. So there is no control on the settlement, whereas ag layer is a little bit opinionated on the settlement of these chains, so it can move stuff faster because it is going to control the settlement. But the fact of the matter is, like, how the capitalism works is not every chain is going to hand over its settlement to ag layer. So then obviously LayerZero, LZ routes becomes, and similarly Wormhole routes are also preferable for this. So I think for a long time there will be a balance that will stay, and then eventually stronger tech only solutions will work. Right now we have tech plus market based solutions providing this cross chain interoperability.
Excellent. Arjun, I saw you nodding your head, and since you got the shout out, why don't you go next and tell me, where have we come in the last year or two, and what are the next obstacles we got to get past?
Yeah, I want to echo Sandeep's points, right? Like, because it's very clear, like, where we've come to this point in the last 12 to 18 months, and the level of acceleration we have got to this point, but the end state isn't even close, right? But based on acceleration and where we're looking to go, I really do think that we aren't far away from what that like perfect internet may look like, right? Or that perfect plane landing in the city, to use the analogy that Sandeep used, right? To give that into context, at least from a LayerZero perspective, total value transferred in the last 30 days via LayerZero messaging has been $27 billion. Over all time, that's been 175 billion. So you can see just in the last 30 days, 27 billion out of that 175, you can see what that acceleration and what that adoption looks like. Okay. And I do agree to Sandeep's point regarding, all of these like mesh networks and how they can work together, especially how intents and solvers across different routes are going to really struggle for fragmented liquidity as time goes on. But the interesting piece is how far we've really come. And Sandeep kind of mentioned the LayerZero OFT standard. And again, like I truly do believe that is one part of the puzzle towards that end state. So messaging and native issuance means users don't necessarily see a bridge, right? And I'm going to continue to talk about this because I'm trying to think about what the user wants to see in the future, right? Like they press one button, the actions happen completely behind the curtain. There's no slippage. There's minimal fees. There's no claiming on the destination chain. Everything happens in the background for the user, right? In that perfect world end state. And I think messaging and native issuance means like users won't necessarily see a bridge in theory. And I think for OFT tokens where you burn on chain A and mint on chain B, it's the same supply. One user action is a really large step towards, you know, what we're talking about, like seamless liquidity movement across these chains. And, you know, how this is where it is like currently and what it's going to look like in the future, we can see those steps, right? I mentioned sort of the value transfer in the last 30 days, but, you know, stable coins are, you know, talk of the town, if you will. Stable coins built on top of the OFT standard, the likes of USDT 0, Athena's USDE, PayPal's PYUSD, Ondo's USDY. All of these follow the OFT standard that are built on top of the LayerZero protocol. And I think as we continue to see this moving, we'll continue to see more and more adopting these type of standards, and we're going to continue to seeing that end state where, you know, you press one button and behind the curtain, everything happens for you.
Yeah, and that almost seems like a perfect transition to Andre. I know you've been building on the routing layer. We've heard about Zaps, and if you haven't heard about Zaps, look that up in the context of Li-Fi. This is like bundling multiple steps into a single transaction. And I heard you say on a recent interview that the problem is fragmentation. It's not necessarily a lack of liquidity. So same question to you, but I'd love for you to unpack that and what you mean by that and the implication for like how protocols and everyday users like me should think about it. You know, to what extent is this a UX problem, and are we like close to cracking that nut? Is it solvable?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the question. So I think that for the past 2 years, we kind of moved from bridging assets to generally coordinating liquidity and execution across chains. So 2, 3, 4 years ago, incentives weren't really aligned for the end user because there was so much money out there for new protocols and new bridging and new messaging projects to come up and, you know, try to grab as much land as possible. I think that that's kind of solved right now, and there are a few market leaders like, you know, LayerZero, Wormhole, and liquidity is still somewhat fragmented, but it's not that much about moving tokens right now. It's about moving value and the actual intent. When it comes to the actual liquidity fragmentation, I don't think that's a bug in any way. It's just a byproduct of innovation. So every new chain or, you know, roll up has liquidity, which gets siloed. So that needs to get unified. So for us at Li.Fi, that's, you know, a very good problem to have out there, because we are connecting via interoperability and via aggregation all that siloed liquidity from one chain to the other. We do believe that, you know, interop is kind of solved right now for the most part. And now it's just connecting and putting all the pieces of puzzles together. And, you know, the next step after, you know, like everything is unpacked, we can just put the puzzle together. Now we need to do or have stronger actions for the end user. So stronger actions are exactly what you mentioned, like Zap. So it's not enough to just move one token from one chain to the other. The users need more than that. So the users want to have an actual action of a swap, a bridge, and another swap, and also a deposit or a repaying function of their loan. Or, you know, like if you want to take it even further, maybe the users actually want to start with fiat with their card and get onboarded into Morpho or whatever your favorite DeFi protocol is. And we think that Li.Fi is the solution here, which kind of aggregates all those pieces together and offers a very good experience for the end user.
Okay, I'd like to follow up on that. Can you just really make it clear for users maybe at a lower DeFi level, like the problem here? How does scattered liquidity hurt users, and how does it hurt people who are providing liquidity or the protocols themselves?
Yeah, sure. It hurts users and is a pain for the user because, and I can speak from my own experience here. there was a huge blockchain that was launched, I think 4 years ago. I won't name it, but like everyone was on board. Like big support from the Ethereum Foundation. I remember putting some money there just to whatever, farm and explore. I remembered about that blockchain 3 years later. There was actually no bridge, or there was no way for me to get that money out. So now, fast forward to today, there are intent-based bridges which LI.FI aggregates, and I was able to, basically unlock the amount of capital that I had on that said blockchain. So liquidity getting fragmented is only a hurdle for the end user because they don't know, okay, how can I move my money from chain A to chain B? And then you have also the problem of, okay, like I'm ending up on chain B, but I also want to do some actions like, I maybe want to borrow money on Aave. Like, why do I have to do like 7 clicks and also review every single transaction when I could do it in one zap?
Oh, okay, but when you unify, like, you are also, especially if you're going across protocols, you're increasing the surface area for risk, or at least the complexity, maybe taking additional trust assumptions, right? There's complexity of governance, token standards. So like, how do you guys think about that too? Am I right in saying that when we increase this complexity, we also increase surface area for risk?
You're absolutely right. We've tried to put a lot of research and education for our users into the types of bridging standards and protocols that they use via Li-Fi. But in the end of the day, we realized that like that's obviously very important, but it's more about catering a very good experience to the end user. The end user won't read a 10,000 word article that our research team is putting together. They will most likely just pick and choose the fastest and the cheapest bridge out there.
Arjun, I actually want to ask you the next question to follow up. So like thinking now from the users to like protocols, you all work with a lot of different protocols to make this vision happen, but we have a lot of founders and builders watching today or in the future. And if you're in the future, hello, we hope your candles are green. From that perspective, wearing a lot of hats, if you were advising a new DeFi protocol being built today, what kind of things would you be really insistent that they architect differently to avoid being part of the fragmentation problem? What would you advise them to think about?
Yeah, I think it's a very, very clear piece, right? And at the end of the day, there's two sides to liquidity fragmentation, right? The flip side to that is capital efficiency and access to users, right? Every protocol that's trying to move forward is looking to have as much access to users, as much access to capital efficiency, as many stakeholders that have access to their protocol and their token and or what they're doing on that protocol. And I think capital efficiency, especially in this world right now, is as important as ever. It's the biggest tactical advantage for a DeFi protocol. If liquidity is stranded on 10 different chains, depending on who the stakeholder is, slippage becomes higher, inventories become bloated. Protocols need to think omni-chain, as one pool, not 10 disconnected ones in that example. And again, trying not to be biased, I'm using my own experience here, right? Like I spent, prior to joining LayerZero, I spent 4 years as one of the founding team members and COO at Orderly. And our job at Orderly was focusing on the biggest issue, which was fragmented liquidity. Our job was a liquidity and infrastructure layer for perpetual futures to enable people to trade from anywhere, any chain of their choice, right, with any asset of their choice. And we built probably 6 months in, so we're talking 3.5 years ago, we built with the LayerZero standard to ensure that we could have cross-chain messaging from 17 plus different chains at once. So again, to that ethos, come from the chain of your choice to trade the asset of your choice. And everything was settled on an orderly chain at that point. So to answer your question, what advice would I give, seeing both sides of the coin as the DeFi protocol itself and the infrastructure provider, I would be thinking omni-chain from day one. And I think building around the OFT standard is critical, and we see that with the use cases that we have today at LayerZero and the type of protocols that we have today already. I think keeping one single canonical supply across all chains, killing any like wrapped asset spread, removing any like bridge bloat, lowering slippage, increasing inventory for market makers across any chain. If I was a DeFi protocol, I then appease many different parties, myself, my users, and the stakeholders in the ecosystem that want to interact with my protocol as well.
Beautifully said. Sandeep, you made some waves recently on X when you made a statement in defense of a friend, speaking up about some of the fragmentation you see across the Ethereum ecosystem. And specifically, you talked about this problem that, like you said, when Polymarket wins big, it's Ethereum. Polygon is not Ethereum, and it really blows your mind. But you said that the Ethereum community, and I'm extrapolating to say like maybe the crypto community, because we have a lot of tribalism here. You know, my chain is best. You said they need to take a hard look at themselves. I'm hearing all of you talk a lot about interoperability, but like the fact remains that we are not just fragmented in liquidity, we're also kind of fragmented, it seems, sometimes in our vision. And so I'm curious how we're going to build that bridge. Do you see these solutions working together? Do you think it has to be led by one very strong chain? Do you think that there will be this multi-chain, multi-purpose, multi-chain future? I wanted to give you a chance to speak to that because I know a lot of people reacted to it. Your thoughts on it? Oh, Sandeep, you're muted. Sorry, start again.
Oh, I'm really sorry. Yeah. So I'm saying that, this is a multi-dimensional, question or, situation that, one is the tribalism part and all that. But I think the crypto Twitter CT people give too much attention or too much importance to ourselves. Like, this 500K odd or maybe million odd crypto Twitter people. And then, if you go to Binance and look at like what's the total number of registered users on their homepage, I think it's, if I even open now, it's like, few hundreds of millions, right? And, when I go to India, for example, I see people who have no idea about like what Polygon is or whatever, but they are like, participants of the markets. So there is, obviously, three categories of these users, like obviously speculators, but then more informed speculators on crypto Twitter, and then the actual users. I think for actual users, when you actually have $100,000 in USDT and you want to convert it into ETH, I don't think you will have any tribalism in your mind. You will go on to probably Li-Fi and then, try to find the best route for yourself, to wherever you want to take that money to, right? And by the way, like, for the sake of this panel, like I think LayerZero, Li-Fi, and Agora right now, I think for the intent platforms, I think these three define the cross-chain world, overall, like whatever happens. So they're doing really good. Big shout out to all three teams. But what I'm saying is that, users don't care about this tribalism. And so that angle is another. But then there is Ethereum community, and there is Ethereum community tribalism, multiple L2s because it became too big, and then the L2s basically have this. But what I wanted to talk about that time is that one of the things that Ethereum community has done a disservice to itself, especially in the hindsight it looks disservice, is setting the narrative of L1s and L2s very, very badly, right? So L2s inherently tells you that for the market speculators or somebody who's trying to price a network, L2 naturally think of L2 as a subservient network or a second grade citizen in some L1 world, right? And that's why, like everyone, even though the L2 construction is the fair construction, I think I am a big believer of, it's not like Polygon is an L2 because like I have fiduciary duties also, right, like towards Polygon's community and all that. But I definitely fundamentally believe that the L2 construction, where there is one single hugely decentralized layer, but that layer outsources the trust. You have, mathematical smart contract mechanisms to piggyback on that trust. So because that trust comes with a cost, like Ethereum at 500B, even with that 2 or 3% inflation, it mints around 10 to like $5 to $15 billion in that to paying for that security, right? And that security, like, it's a waste of finance somewhere, right? So you could have execution on an L2 and then just piggyback on the trust on that. So I said that this positioning is bad. Instead, it should be execution layer versus settlement layer. And that way, Ethereum's execution layers, which is Polygon, Base, Arbitrum, and all that, we directly compete with L1 execution layers like Solana, Sui, and Aptos. And the L1s basically are priced like 10 to 20 times, 30 times. Like I was giving an example that, like today, Arbitrum, Polygon, and Optimism, ZK Sync, Starknet combined, I'm saying, are less valued than Hedera hash graph. Can you imagine that? And Hedera hash graph, like if you combine in terms of the liquidity, it will be like probably 5 or 6 orders of magnitude higher liquidity, 5 or 6 orders of magnitude higher users and everything, right? But then the pricing is insane because of this bad narrative, and that's what I wanted to speak about. And I think like the interop, because Ethereum being the biggest multi-chain ecosystem, I think interop will coalesce more and more around Ethereum as Ethereum comes up with more standards and all that. Probably they will become standards. But I think to just because I think we are already above time here, that I initially feel that there will be multiple multi-chain interoperability protocols. And then there will be aggregators like Li-Fi, which aggregate all of these multi-chain protocols and all that, and provide one single interface to the users. And then over time, over a very, very long time, because these are liquidity profiles, they don't move that fast, that this thing, over very long time, you will have kind of like the purely tech and smart contract defined interoperability standards without relying on any third party security zones in between.
Arjun, you were nodding your head. Did you have a response to that?
No, I actually couldn't have said it better, right? And it, as Sandeep was talking about it, I was reminiscing about a very old tweet that Hasib from Dragonfly spoke about when, and I'm sure we'll all remember it as well, where Hasib was talking about this, L1 and L2 competitive landscape. And actually, competitive landscape is a loose term, if you will. And all of these different chains, whether they are L1s, L2s, future L3s, should be considered as cities or countries, right? And they all have their different use case, their own security assumptions, but cities all interact with each other with specific highways or transport links, and specific like assumptions or execution environments. And Sandeep's kind of version of it kind of was just making me reminisce, and this feels like a more future version, a more elevated, current state of where we are as Hasib's thought process or thesis has evolved over time.
Yeah, I actually used to use that analogy to explain blockchain to people, different networks. And then when I encountered Hasib's very thorough unpacking of it, I was like, oh, this guy took that thought and took it to a touchdown. So Hasib, shout out. We appreciate your work and thank you for it. We actually have just a few more minutes. So I'd love to get your take, just rapid fire, on sort of a final looking to the future question. And you can either tell me what keeps you up at night as you try to solve these problems, your big fears, a bold prediction that you have, or for the audience, how they should think about all these competitive protocols, measuring success if they're looking to get hired somewhere, or looking to build something, or looking to back something as a speculator, and then tell us where people can find you. We'll go back to you, Arjun, first. So give me what keeps you up at night, a prediction for the future, or what does success look like, and then where people can get in touch.
So what keeps me up at night outside of Telegram notifications?
Yeah.
Honestly, I've been in this space since 2015. The same things keep me up at night. Where are we innovating? What are we doing? The excitement for tomorrow. Continually doing things like this, where I get to listen to other perspectives, learn from them, and I'll go away from today and I have a bunch of different ideas, and I'll wake up in the middle of the night and think about something that both participants have said, and that's going to continue to add to my thought process, my thesis as I move forward. And predictions for the future and what's going to happen, I'll probably keep it a little bit closer to what we have spoken about today. I think things that are going to be emerging, things that I've always talked about, is UX and UI onboarding for general retail users is going to continue to accelerate at rapid pace. And again, I think interop and cross-chain capital deployment are going to become more and more efficient over time. I think we're seeing massive innovations and efficiencies in that place, but that is going to be, that is going to be a huge drive over the next coming years, especially as we see more institutional adoption.
And then what is the best place for people to find you or to find LayerZero?
You can find me on X. It is 0x_Arjun, ARJUN, and LayerZero Labs on Twitter as well.
Okay, beautiful. Sandeep, you next. What does success look like? Do you have a bold prediction for the future?
I think you missed the what keeps me up at night.
I did. You feel free to answer that too.
Yeah, I think that what keeps me up at night is seeing the Web2 transition, like the companies which laid the undersea optical fiber lines and whatever, built the telecom towers and all that. Eventually, they become commoditized, and then the consumer companies are basically are in the limelight. And I thought that for the infrastructure, we have right now, you talked about the tribalism on the chains, but I think over time, except unless you are a meme coin, I consider Bitcoin as the biggest meme coin, and a meme coin as in meme, that means the value is coming from the mind of the people, right? And it is the OG of the OG, and before that, gold is the even bigger meme coin, right? But but the infrastructure generally goes into the background, and then more shiny things become more popular. So for me at Polygon Foundation or for Polygon Labs is to how to make sure that we as infrastructure don't go completely into the background. Like Polymarket is an example. They have huge number of users and all that, but still few people will know that this is fully end-to-end built on Polygon blockchain and all that. And I actually feel for users the blockchain should be also completely kind of abstracted away from their user experience. They should not care about which blockchain they are, like the same way you are right now. You're not worried about which optical fiber line from which route is taking your data or stream to the internet. But having said that, how do you kind of still make sure or try to find some consumer touch points where, for example, ETH is also similar to that. Solana has also become, because of the Sol coin, that is the consumer touch point. Sol is the consumer touch point. If you see the Tether USDT itself, like USDT is itself is a big touch point for their end users. Like many times you see the people who don't even understand crypto, but they would be okay to accept USDT. They'll say, yeah, here is my TRC20, which is a Tron address, and you can send me USDT. So that's the end consumer touch point. So just always thinking about how can you have the end consumer touch point. So that's one second. What was the second? Sorry,
I'm so sorry, I have to cut you off because we need a final thought from Andrei. Just tell us where, if people love your thought work, they can get in touch to ask you a follow-up question themselves. What's the best? Sandeep, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Oh, for me, I am on Telegram, Twitter @Sandeep Nailwal. My full name, and yeah, you can
Excellent.
find me.
Thank you. And Andrei, final thought to you. Give us what keeps you up at night, or what success looks like, prediction for the future, and where people can find you.
Yeah, sure. I think that success, especially for this industry and for LI.FI, and I strongly think that we are participating in this, is that in the future, people will not use multi-chain and cross-chain as words. They will just say, I swap. So wallets and apps will route liquidity behind the scene, and users will just say they swap. Even if, it involves like 5 chains and, multiple different intents and a zap at the end. So I think that that's my bold prediction here. It's more like wishful thinking, I'd say, than a prediction, because this goes for like many years now that, like the future is multi-chain, the future is cross-chain. But I do like to think that everything goes towards, just swapping in and out of chains and assets.
And what's the
People
best way, Andrei, to find you if people want to get in touch and hear more of your ideas?
Of course, people can find me on Telegram or on Twitter. Just drop me my DMs are open on Twitter, and I'm always on the lookout for like a good conversation and new partners to speak to.
And you can find me at rumshq.com. Get all the socials there. But on behalf of all the panelists and Octant, thank you very much for your time, your attention, your most valuable asset. Michelle?
Thank you so much. And thank you, Arjun. Thank you, Sandeep. And thank you, Andrei and Evan, for this great conversation. And Sandeep, on behalf of, I'm in the Polygon ecosystem. I am in the Ethereum ecosystem. I do want to say thank you for all your contributions and Polygon's contributions to the Ethereum ecosystem, right? I think no one can deny them. I think we're celebrating them. And I love seeing the positive encouragement from the Polygon ecosystem, even giving flowers to Solana's ecosystem, honestly, on Twitter. So I love seeing this positivity and positive sum thinking. I think it's one that absolutely is part of Ethereum's values too. And I think at the end of the day, if we're all on chain, we are probably living a better world because there's so much more to do in terms of challenges and everything else that we still have to do. But again, thank you guys so much for all of your work and contributions and for being part of this panel. It's been so insightful. Evan, that was a spicy topic. When you asked that question, I was like, oh shit, what are we going to hear?
Sandeep, we didn't get a chance to talk before, but thank you for being gracious and all of you for being classy and generous with your intellect. This is a really wonderful conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.